Everyone thought Ethan Hale had everything a man could ever want: power, wealth, respect, a name that opened every door. But on the night he stood alone in his penthouse, watching the city lights blur through unshed tears, Ethan knew the truth. He had lost the only thing that ever mattered. Years ago, at the edge of a quiet hospital room, he made a promise to himself he believed would keep him alive. He would never love again. Love had taken too much. It had given him joy, then torn it away without mercy, leaving behind silence and a child who looked too much like the woman he lost. From that day forward, Ethan became a man of rules. Feel nothing. Expect nothing. Control everything. His business empire grew faster than ever, his name praised in headlines, his face admired on screens. Yet inside his vast mansion, time seemed frozen. Rooms were spotless but lifeless. Hallways echoed with footsteps that never led to warmth. His young daughter, Lily, lived surrounded by luxury but starved of presence. Ethan provided for her needs but not for her heart. Every time he tried to get close, memories rose like shadows and he stepped back. Then one ordinary morning, everything shifted. Ethan barely noticed when the agency informed him a new maid would start that day. He rarely noticed such details anymore. But as he walked through the hallway later that afternoon, he stopped without knowing why. Ahead of him stood a woman holding the hand of a small girl. The child's laughter filled the space, soft, unsure, but real. Something about that sound pierced through the walls Ethan had built around himself. For the first time in years, his heart reacted before his mind could stop it. He didn't know it yet, but in that quiet moment, the promise he once swore was already beginning to crack. The woman introduced herself as Clara, her voice calm, steady, carrying the tone of someone who had learned to remain strong even when life tested her. Beside her stood her daughter, Emma, small fingers wrapped tightly around her mother's hand, eyes wide with curiosity rather than fear. Ethan nodded briefly and turned away, telling himself there was nothing unusual about this moment. And yet, long after he returned to his office, he couldn't forget the way Emma had smiled. Not the loud, careless smile of a child who expects the world to be kind, but a careful one, as if she was used to disappointment and still chose hope. Clara moved through the house differently from the others before her. She didn't rush to impress. She didn't fill the silence with empty words. Instead, she treated the quiet as something sacred. When she noticed Lily sitting alone with her toys, she didn't interrupt or command attention. She simply sat nearby, folding laundry, humming softly. Lily glanced at her once, then twice, as if surprised that someone could stay without demanding anything in return. Days passed, and small changes began to appear, almost invisible unless one looked closely. Lily started finishing her meals. She slept through the night. She began leaving her door open. Clara never forced conversation, but when Lily spoke, she listened as if each word mattered. Emma joined in gently, showing Lily her drawings, offering crayons without expecting acceptance. Ethan observed all of this from a distance, telling himself it meant nothing. Yet one evening as he walked past the living room, he heard laughter. Real laughter. It stopped him cold. His hand froze mid-step. That sound carried warmth he had not allowed into his life for years. A quiet fear stirred within him, not of Clara but of what she was awakening. Because if hope returned to this house, Ethan would have to face the one thing he had spent years running from, the chance to feel again. Ethan told himself he was only being careful. He watched Clara and Emma from the edge of his routine, measuring their presence the way a man measures weather, alert, guarded, prepared to retreat. Yet the house no longer behaved the same. Mornings carried the faint smell of breakfast. Curtains were opened earlier. Light traveled farther into rooms that had stayed dim for years. None of this should have mattered, and yet it did. One afternoon, Ethan returned home earlier than planned. As he entered the garden, he heard voices near the old oak tree. Lily was kneeling in the dirt, hands clumsy with soil, while Clara patiently showed her how to plant a seed. Emma sat beside them, explaining with great seriousness how flowers needed kindness as much as water. Lily laughed when dirt smudged her cheek and Clara laughed too, not loudly but freely. Ethan stood frozen behind the glass doors, unable to move. That scene stirred something painful and beautiful inside him. It reminded him of a version of himself he barely recognized, a man who once believed in simple joys. His chest tightened not with sorrow but with regret. He realized how much of his daughter's childhood had passed while he was busy protecting himself from memories. Later that evening, Lily did something she had never done before. She ran toward Ethan when he came home. Not fast, not boldly, but with intention. She wrapped her arms around his legs and held on. Ethan stood stiff, unsure, until Clara gently said, "She's just happy you're here." Those words felt like permission. Slowly, awkwardly, Ethan knelt and hugged his daughter back. In that moment, he understood the truth he had avoided for years. The pain he feared wasn't waiting in love, it was waiting in distance. That night, sleep refused to come to Ethan. The image of Lily's small arms around him replayed again and again, breaking through memories he had kept locked away. For the first time in years, he didn't push the feeling aside. Instead, he let it settle, uneasy but warm, like a fire rekindling after a long winter. He realized how carefully Clara moved through their lives, not as someone trying to replace anything, but as someone helping broken pieces find their place again. The next morning, Ethan did something unexpected. He joined Lily and the girls at breakfast. No phone. No rushed excuses. Just presence. At first, the table was quiet, but Emma began talking about school, about a story she wanted to write, about dreams that stretched far beyond her age. Lily listened with wide eyes, then added her own thoughts, soft but confident. Ethan felt like a guest in his own home, yet welcomed in a way he hadn't known he needed. Later, Clara thanked him simply for sitting with them. Her gratitude wasn't heavy or emotional, it was honest. That sincerity unsettled Ethan more than admiration ever could. He began to see that Clara carried her own quiet strength. Life had not been gentle with her either, yet she still chose patience over bitterness. As days passed, Ethan found himself seeking small moments, helping Lily with a puzzle, walking Emma to the gate, asking Clara how her day had been. Each moment chipped away at the walls he'd built. And with every wall that fell, something else grew: trust, warmth, a sense of belonging. Ethan understood then that healing wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about allowing the present to matter. And for the first time, he wasn't afraid of what might happen next. Ethan thought he was ready for change, until change asked him to choose. The truth surfaced on an afternoon wrapped in tension, when a business opportunity demanded he relocate for several months. In the past, the decision would have been simple. Work came first. Feelings were postponed. But now, the idea of leaving the house quiet again filled him with an unexpected weight. He watched Lily playing with Emma, their laughter weaving through the halls, and felt the question rise: what kind of life was he truly building? That evening he spoke honestly for the first time in years. Not to investors or advisors but to Clara. He admitted his fear, of attachment, of loss, of opening his heart only to feel it break again. Clara listened without judgment. When she finally spoke, her words were gentle but firm. She told him that love was never a promise of safety, but it was always a promise of meaning. Avoiding it didn't protect the heart, it only kept it empty. Her words stayed with him. That night, Ethan made a decision that shocked even himself. He turned down the relocation. Instead, he chose to be present. To be a father not just in title but in action. The change was immediate. Lily's confidence grew. Her laughter came easier. She began to reach for Ethan without hesitation, trusting he would stay. Ethan realized something powerful then. Strength wasn't found in control or distance. It was found in courage. The courage to show up every day, even when the outcome was uncertain. And in choosing them, he felt himself becoming whole again. Ethan once believed life only moved forward through ambition, that success was measured by numbers and recognition. But standing in his garden months later, watching two girls chase each other through falling leaves, he understood how incomplete that belief had been. The house that once echoed with silence now carried warmth in every corner. Not because it was perfect but because it was finally alive. One evening, Lily climbed into his lap with a book and asked him to read. The request was simple, yet it shook him. As he read aloud, her head resting against his chest, Ethan felt something settle inside him. A quiet peace he had never found in any achievement. Across the room, Clara watched, her smile soft, knowing this moment mattered more than words could express. Ethan did not rush what followed. Love, he learned, didn't arrive like a storm. It grew like roots, unseen but steady. Over time, he and Clara spoke more openly, about hope, about loss, about the future they were no longer afraid to imagine. Emma and Lily became inseparable, sisters in spirit, teaching each other how to trust again. One night, as the house lights dimmed, Ethan realized the promise he once made had changed. He hadn't broken it, he had outgrown it. He didn't love because he forgot the past. He loved because he honored it by choosing life again. And in opening his heart, he didn't lose anything. He found everything he thought was gone forever.